All right. Well, thank you guys for being here. How are we doing today?
Awesome.
Good. Great. Good, good. Well, today we are going to talk about an instructional strategy that I think we need to get comfortable with. We need to implement in our classroom, because I think at the end of this, you're going to recognize how effective it is and how much your students are going to enjoy it. So what's the gimmick when we mimic? So first, we're going to make some connections. So I need everyone to stand up. So we're going to play something called 1, 2, 3 shuffle. So you're going to want to stand across from a partner. Okay. All right. So in this game, what you're going to do is you're going to take turns just counting to 3. But you keep it going until the timer stops. And you're trying to obviously not make a mistake. And so for example, you'd be 1, 2, 3.
1.
Exactly.
3.
All right. Try it.
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 3. 2. 1, 2, 1, 3. 2, 1, 2, 3. 3. 1, 2, 3. 1.
Faster.
3. 2.
1.
2. 1. 2.
2.
3. 1.
2.
Okay, stop. All right, so you can turn and look at the TV. So with this partner, I want you to talk about what are your best lessons? Like what do your best lessons involve?
Student involvement, student activities, getting them up and around, and
them doing home talking, totally each other,
and learning from each other.
So that's a good one.
All right, so what I heard a lot of collaboration. So both groups said collaboration. You talked about student-led versus teacher-led, student thinking. All right, so now we're going to do this 1, 2, 3 shuffle. Except this time, instead of 3, you have to snap. Okay, so again, 1, 2, 1, 2. All right, go.
Okay. 1, 2,
1.
2, 1,
2,
2.
1,
2,
2,
1,
2.
Okay.
1.
2, 1,
2.
1,
2. 1.
2,
2,
1,
1. 2. 1.
2,
2,
1.
2.
Okay. All right. So y'all are really putting serious thought into this. So
We are
this is awesome.
concentrating.
Yeah. Okay. So now what I want you to do is change partners,
Okay.
and I want you to talk about
Up here. Okay.
how do you get quiet students to participate in class? You never had quiet
Sometimes you
students?
need to do a little
They can
prompting
lead a
or
group.
modeling,
I would want
and encouragement.
Press.
That's a good one.
Some
Yes,
steps,
give them-
because sometimes they
Mhm.
don't start the conversation.
Okay.
Giving them like some keywords, if it's part of the lesson.
All right. So
Find out
we
why they're
heard.
quiet. Find out why they're
We heard someone said that she's never had quiet students. So you're so I mean, you can learn from everybody else. But
Yes.
so set in stems is something that I heard. What was something that you guys talked
Give them a
about?
leadership role.
Ooh, okay. And you have some that are going to be a little reluctant to that, but they typically, if it's at least a small group, right, versus in front of the entire class, then they could thrive in that. All right, very good. Okay, so now,
Oh.
1 hop snap.
Oh, no.
1 hop snap. 1 hop snap. All right, try it out.
All right.
1.
Okay, 1,
1,
1.
1,
1.
1,
1.
1.
Okay. Can you see your students liking this in class?
Yeah.
This is one of the, well, especially for those quiet students at the beginning of the year, just the camaraderie, get them laughing.
Awesome.
Okay. So, I mean, this is definitely a fun thing to get them talking and sharing. So how do students take notes in your class? So talk about that. Hey, go ahead and just jump in.
Mhm.
Either
Join a
fill
group.
in the blank.
Yeah.
Hi,
I'm
I'm
Rosalie.
Rosalie.
Hi, Rosalie. I'm Carolyn. Nice to meet you.
Okay, how do students take notes in
We did fill in the
class?
blank.
Okay. Is it like a guided?
Guide.
Mhm.
Notes,
Okay.
notes there. Over there.
Mm-hmm. Kind of, yeah, it does hit those
Uh-huh.
kids with the needs.
Yeah, I see
And
students
it's
utilizing
accommodation.
guided notes. And
So,
funnily enough, I
have
think
you ever
that
run
colors
into,
help quite a
with
bit
those kids with the
in
fill in the blank,
information.
not understanding, they're just robots, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
You need to
I have, I've experienced that with my kids. They're just doing the task that they're asked to do it. They're not really thinking about what they're writing down. Because then you ask, whenever the assignments pass out, then you ask,
Examples are good. And
all right,
then
so,
also,
where in your notes
yeah,
did we
the
talk about that?
fill in the blank, guided notes.
I don't know. Yeah, so getting them to use those notes is a
Yeah.
whole other skill.
Or something,
You
draw
need to-
pictures so they have
Yeah.
something to, visualize with,
All right, so what's something that you guys said?
So we said guided notes are a huge help to the students. It's using techniques such as temperature taking, using doodles, to kind of help them point out information. Also colors. Highlighting seems to be very effective.
So this group over here we also talked about guided notes, but we talked about how a lot of students are like robots, right? How they don't have a lot of thinking whenever they're filling in the notes. However, if students are going back within that same time frame and you're saying, all right, so now go back and make those doodles, go ahead and highlight the important information that we talked about, then they're actually putting some thinking into the notes that we're giving them. So I love that. That's awesome. Okay, last one.
Oh,
All right, spin, hop, snap. Spin, hop, snap. So you're taking turns.
Okay,
Spin, hop, like 1, 2, 3. 1, 2.
Oh, I see.
okay, all right. You want
Spin,
hop,
spin.
hop.
Should have chosen a different one.
I chose the right one.
Okay. It's all right. It's okay. So, do you think in using this activity there would be any type of preemptive instruction that we would have to give, like rules, boundaries, before they do
Yeah.
this? I mean, I can see some students. What can we see them doing?
Arguing over who goes first, who's doing the spinning.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that
Spinning around the room,
Yes,
hopping
just
around the room.
exaggerated
Saying-
movements.
Not
Yeah.
saying I can find.
Okay, all right, so go ahead and have a seat. Thank you guys so much.
That was fun.
All right, so today, so we're going to start with our school vision. So ISMS will guide and engage the mind, the body, and the spirit. We kind of did that a little bit. Of each student as they strive to meet the ever-changing needs of our society through a partnership with faculty, parents, family, and community. So this is our school vision. So before we dive into the results, let's go ahead and chat. I'm going to go ahead and pass out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and pass out some information regarding our STAR results, 7th and 8th grade STAR results this past year. And you don't need that one yet. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple minutes just to kind of look through. It's two-sided, so you've got 7th grade on one side and 8th grade on the other. So go ahead and just talk about the needs that you notice. It's broken down by demographics, obviously. So just kind of look through and make some observations, and we'll kind of discuss some things together. And you have highlighters in your desk if you need something to write with.
This one.
Oh, you're on
No. Are we supposed to share?
Oh, this one.
That's present. Yeah. It's really good. Well, you can look at, like around disadvantage, they did really well. They met, I mean, they were close
This is definitely a group that needs to be.
Dressed bad, terrible.
Yeah.
This over, that doesn't surprise me though,
Right.
right? Look at this, and that's amazing.
That's a crazy number.
That's
But I
really
see,
good.
cause I've got.
But there's only three.
Right.
So.
Which also surprised me.
Mhm.
I think, and then I like, there's like really no like.
So,
versus, like,
on the
finish.
ones, yeah, so look down here to see how close they were. Look at that.
So
They were
this,
so, these are the who passed, the percent that passed, but this is the percent that were close.
oh, okay,
But
real
for
close.
someone like you, like how do you see something?
That's pretty high compared to that,
What does that mean to you?
Yeah, I mean, and
Do
Does
they
it
know
have
yet
a
what
sense?
this range is? They're saying it's high, so they're almost there, but is that like two
Forty-four
questions or 4 questions?
44% was
I
passing,
usually try to look at their
was
performance,
approaching,
like
What was it?
44%.
medium high, which at the bottom helps a
Yeah.
little bit.
But what I'm
So,
saying is,
yeah.
do we know what the high range
I
is
don't.
versus low range?
So, I mean, they should be within,
We're right
They could be within one
One or two
question,
questions.
3 questions, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't think more than 3 though.
Seventh
Yeah.
grade one,
Mm-mm.
you'll see that
But-
there are 33.
that's pretty good though, look at that, yeah.
Mhm.
That means it's.
So, I mean, looking at
Yeah,
those,
which is really good, so they
the
might
low.
have like maybe 1 or 2 questions.
All right, if you haven't moved on to the 8th grade side, let's have a minute or so to look at the 8th grade.
What's interesting is it's the same on the bottom.
That's what we look at each grade.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You also can look at
it's really
the
good.
different sub-pops
And then if you look down
to see
here,
how they did up here, approaches means
but they were
Yeah.
high, even look at that.
pass with
42% were close.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah.
Means is like they're on grade level and masters
And
means they're
this might
above
be
or
more of
the
the resource
sort
Mhm.
of
you know.
high.
Mhm.
You can see the differences in the percentages based on the
Mhm.
subpopulation.
Or coach each.
Mhm.
So
Well,
if you
yeah.
look at our special ed, for example,
Now, this is interesting to me, this same
19
group,
students.
look at the difference in the numbers.
And if we look at the percentages down
For
here,
this side
you
is
see out of
really
19,
low.
which percent
I see, and
got these
Big
approaches
difference between
to
7 and 8.
masters.
Mm-hmm.
gotcha.
Big difference between the
Okay, I understand it a lot
All right, well, let's go ahead and talk about some things. And I'm sure I was walking around and I heard you thought of some of the things I thought of too. So here on the 7th grade side, I noticed that the economically disadvantaged was around the same as all the other subgroups. So normally there's more of a disparity, and there was not. So they did much better than previous years. They did a great job. The next thing, that did not meet high, look at Hispanic and SPED. So did not meet high. So this was huge because our Hispanic and SPED populations, look at the approaches. So you've got 61% and then 29%. But then look at how many were close to passing. So you've got 30, almost 39% Hispanic and 46% special ed, almost passed. So those were some highlights. Also, the economically disadvantaged, the Hispanic and the white all performed similarly. And you can either say that the white did not do as well as it normally did, or you could say that the other two just stepped up their game,
Mm-hmm.
right? Okay. All right, so then now look at the 8th grade side. Yes.
What is 4th year monitoring? 4th year monitoring.
For which one?
This one here.
Um, so 4th year monitoring is the emergent bilingual. So there, or it could have been the at risk.
Okay.
That's actually the ones who have exited bilingual.
Oh, similar to the special ed that is no longer special ed.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, so 8th grade. I heard Karna say they did much better than the 7th grade, and that is right. The numbers look very different. So the highlights, 70% meets and 40% mastery. That's huge, 40% mastery. And then you have the black sub-pop had 90% approach, 90% passed, 40% mastery. That's amazing. Bilingual had 40% mastery. Again, that's huge. Asian, 95% passing, 75% mastery. White, 73% meets. And then economically disadvantaged had 61% pass, but had 33%, again, did not meet high. So 33% were almost passing, okay? So, I don't know if you guys noticed that there was a number circled on each, and it was the meets criteria. So there's a lot of good stuff going on within, especially 8th grade. But what we're going to be focusing on for a math goal this year, we have many goals for, on the needs assessment, our campus improvement plan, but here's our math goal. So by June 2025, 80% of Indian Springs Middle School math students will meet or exceed growth expectations as measured by the MAP or STAR testing data, okay? So with this expectation, we're gonna need to change something in order to meet this expectation, especially with our 7th grade curriculum in our, how we are getting these TEKS and these standards across to our students, how they're learning them. Because as we can see, our 7th grade kiddos, they struggled. They struggled on the TEKS, so we need to do something different. All right.
Question for you.
Yes.
Just thinking back, how are we taking into account the kiddos that are in the accelerated math? Because
They are not in this number.
Right, so had they been here?
So they are actually in the 8th grade number.
Okay.
So what I actually looked at the 6th grade last year, and the 6th grade was 90% approaching last year. And that includes our current 7th graders and those who took the on-level 7th and the accelerated, which took the 8th grade math. So those two groups combined last year both took 6th grade, right? And so they made 90%. And so you can see the disparity there once the accelerated students broke off. And so now we're just looking at our on-level, and we're really just, those needs are really coming out. All right, so today's objectives. So what are we gonna learn today? We are learning how can we increase the level of student thinking and engagement in our classrooms. Why are we learning this? To increase all student learning and achievement. And what are our norms? Think big, work hard, be kind. All right, so where we are headed. So today, we are going to do our kickoff. This is kind of our kickoff. This is not a one-time training. We're going to be looking at this throughout the year in our PLCs. So here are our dates. The 26th, we're going to be looking at content-specific strategies. The 9th, note-taking and homework. And then April 3rd, STAR review planning. All right, so we are now going to put this into practice. All right, so we are going to do an activity, okay? So I need everyone to stand up and push your chairs in.
You don't need to ask me that, you're told.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is you're gonna be doing a non-curricular task. You're gonna be doing it on the vertical boards. And the rules to this are that only one person can hold the marker at a time, and the person who is writing cannot be the person who is writing their own thoughts. You must write somebody else's thoughts. So if you have something to add, you'll need to pass off the marker, give it to somebody else. And we are going to, if you guys want to come up to me, I will give you your card, and then we will go to our assigned. These are randomly. Those were random. You go to your station that corresponds to your card. I'll come around and collect the cards in just a minute. So this activity is called Make Six. So you are going to use these equations, and you're going to insert mathematical symbols, no digits, to make each equation equal to 6. Okay? All right, I'm going to give you maybe 8 minutes. It says 10 minutes here, but I'm going to give you about 8 minutes. And I'll just be walking around, and go for it.
Who's got a pen? Okay, okay, sure. Okay, that's easy. Plus.
Feel free to talk loud enough for me to hear.
I did too.
I'll just write them for, hang on.
I'm just gonna write 9.
No.
Do you guys want to move on to
Those are
5?
big.
I can think about the fours.
Plus 6. We're gonna do that first. Okay.
This one's 6 minus 6 plus 6. Okay.
Keep going.
Okay.
I was gonna skip over.
This one's 5 divided by 5.
Yep.
Still sitting?
I just got that too.
So what are all the different operations?
Addition, subtraction.
Addition, subtraction, divide, and multiply.
Is that it?
Oh, square.
Oh.
Okay, then square root of 4 plus 4. 8. Now, hold on. Oh, so it's
The fun part of this activity is that students
square root of 4
can
plus square root of 4 plus
borrow
square root of 4.
ideas.
Yeah. Fight us. High five.
Oh,
Sorry.
I stole it.
Kind of tell you what you told them. What are the different, I noticed that you recognize those.
You gotta know you?
What are the different operations?
So,
Plus, minus, multiply
hold on, I
by,
lost it.
everything takes square root.
Hold on to it.
Excellent.
Squared.
This one?
So if we did this.
Oh.
Sorry. 16. Oh, if you squared it, 16. 16 minus 4.
Oh, and then those
Minus
parentheses.
Oh,
I imagine we can
divided
use
by
those.
4. Right? So, if you do an
I know.
operation, you square it first.
Okay,
16.
This. Oh, okay.
And equals 2.
So 49 minus 7.
Make that 2? No. Oh, the square root of it?
Two.
Would be 2.
Divided by 7.
2 4.
Right?
So the square root of 4 is 2.
Okay.
I was right.
Hey! It's like,
I have to do my
sixes in my brain.
Okay. Minus.
Your turn.
Divided by 4.
Yeah,
Right.
let's go, we're mighty.
So let's try something like, so if we split that, that would be 49. 49 divided by 7 is 7. 7 minus 7 is, let's do or, square
No, that's 3, that's 9. See. Wrong?
I don't know, you tell me.
Oh, 1 point.
Well, we could do,
Oh, yeah, it's almost like.
we could
Alright, one more minute.
We could do, so it would be 3, right? So square root of 3 and 9 plus square root of 9. And we just need to get this to be a 1. But then it can be divided by 1. That doesn't make sense. Well,
I need more time.
divided by 9.
Can't make that 5.
Alright. Okay, so go ahead and put markers down.
Good job, Jessica. Amazing.
Alright, so let's go ahead and let's start out with this group over here, okay? So somebody not in this group, tell me why you think I may have circled this and circled this one and maybe drew an arrow. Why am I pointing out these 3 equations?
They were tough.
Okay.
We have used square root.
Okay, so definitely thinking outside the box, right? Okay, what else? What is 7 squared?
49.
Minus 7
42.
divided by 7. Okay. Is there another way to solve this problem correctly?
We didn't get that.
So what is important when using multiple operations? What is the most important thing we have to remember?
PEMDAS.
PEMDAS, order of operations. So in looking at these 3, is there one of them that was not followed?
Yeah, so
So I noticed, let's go over to this group here. So I notice here, what do you notice, someone not in this group, what do you notice that they have included here? Okay, and what is the importance of using that?
Comes first.
Okay. So do you think by using parentheses that there might be multiple different ways to answer the same thing using the same digits? All right, nice work, nice work. Go ahead and have a seat.
Good job, everybody.
Yes.
High fives all
Great
around.
work.
Clear.
Thank you, though. Typically, yes, we would have our students erase your board before they sit down. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's talk about this process really quick. All right, so how and when were you given directions?
We were given directions at the beginning in the steps. We were told what we can do and cannot do.
Okay. Versus students just sitting in their seats doing you know, whatever they were already doing before I started talking. Okay, what did I have them do?
Go up to the board first.
And before that, what did I have them do?
Your card.
You gave random note cards.
And before that, what did I did give random note cards. Before that, what did I have them do? Before
Stand up with the chair.
stand up and push the chair in. So just that small change, it almost redirects their thinking and redirects their focus. Okay, it's like a transition. All right, so how are you grouped? You kind of said this already.
Randomly with random cards.
Randomly, and there's so many different ways you can do this. You can do this with popsicle sticks. You can do this with playing cards. Last year, that is what some teachers did. Is they had 10 stations around the room, so they used ace through 10, and they just scrambled them up. And the cool thing about that, there's always those students that you don't want in groups together, right? And so do you pull from the top of the deck or the bottom of the deck? So you make sure that they are not in the same group. Okay? All right, so where were you working?
Board.
At the board with our groups.
At the board with your groups. And what did y'all notice about the participation? How'd you feel while working at the boards? What did you notice? What was your experience?
It's easier when you have somebody else to rely on,
Thinking
talking
partners
over
are
head.
Okay. What else?
We were also redirected by our buddies. So
Like if you forgot the rules, the other buddies were just like, pick them up like that.
Nice.
Be good listeners.
Okay. Was it difficult not being able to write your own thoughts? But why do we think that's important for our kids?
Because they learn to listen to other people and like communicate to other people.
And on the other side of that.
They learn to listen.
and communicate clearly.
And can you see, and no matter what level you're talking about, and no matter what class, you're going to have those kids that, the pleasers who want to do it all, that want to do it, the perfectionist. So, I mean, this works on a lot of social skills. Does it force everybody to be engaged, or what are some barriers that you could possibly see?
I think the bigger the group, the easier it would be to disengage, I think. The smaller the group, the easier it is to like, there's focus.
So I noticed that somebody, I was circled with a red marker, and I think, Carolyn, you were like, what's this mean? So the red marker, what that does is, as a teacher, you have this idea of what you're expecting the kids to do, right? And the important parts of it, the things that you definitely want to point out in the process, you're going to want to look for, okay? Why do you think in the debriefing process that I didn't call on the group that, I called on other people that did not write this problem down? So the other group, the other people, why could that be important?
It doesn't put that group and those students who may or may not have gotten it correct on the spot.
Exactly.
I think I liked that you silently went and circled it instead of like saying it verbally, because then that forces the group to think why that was important, and two, it doesn't distract the other students who aren't like staring at them. They can keep working without being distracted.
So one rule with building thinking classrooms and the red marker is the teacher's the only one with the red marker. Everybody else can have some other color. And anything that's circled by the red marker cannot be erased. Cannot be erased. Okay? And there's other rules that go into this at play as well. Like there is a rule that anything that's on the board cannot be erased without asking the person who wrote it down first. So there's a lot of different things that we're going to talk about as far as the procedures and the rules that we have to reinforce in order to keep a safe classroom, to keep everybody engaged. But why do you think circling an error is beneficial? Why wouldn't I want them to be able to erase it before talking about it? Or to fix it before anybody else saw?
Because then you could clarify that, they understood and could correct it, but if they say they didn't, just erase it, then it's easy to like forget and like gloss over it rather than address it and make sure everything is okay.
And all the students in the room know the rules. All the students know that once a teacher circles something, you can't erase it. So that's not to say that they wouldn't have caught it themselves. You know what I mean? And not only that, but don't we learn more from mistakes than we do the right answer sometimes? So, all right, so let's see, did we talk about everything? All right, the engagement level, would you say that the engagement was high?
Yes.
What did you do when your group got stuck?
We talk to each other.
Try different strategies.
Yeah, I noticed that you handed the marker off to Carter and you're like, all right, your turn, your turn. Sometimes that change is necessary. And whenever you're running this in your class, I randomly encourage you guys to just say, all right, switch markers. Marker needs to change hands. You know, because then that one person who's always grabbing for that marker first and they don't want to do the thinking, they're forced into it.
Yeah, I can see how somebody would use that.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so obstacles or concerns that we may encounter, did encounter so this is called a non-curricular task, right? So it's not a readiness standard for our class. It's a supporting or even below that, maybe even just very basic, right? But it can be used, this entire strategy can be used for many different things. It can be used for non-curricular. And we're going to talk later about all the different ways it can be used. But what obstacles can you foresee us running into as teachers using this practice?
Fighting over the marker so you cannot do anything.
Okay, so maybe a little personality conflict. Okay. Which the randomness, why is the randomness helpful?
Because then you don't get with your friends. And
Okay.
friends can be fun, but friends also are more likely to enable non-thinking activities.
Okay.
I think what I had trouble with is when my partner had the marker, I didn't have a marker to do my thinking and processing on the board.
So having to speak your thoughts before you were confident about them.
Because I'm visual, I need to see it, and so talking through it when I couldn't write it down was hard.
That's true.
Yep, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've been there. Anything else?
I think it's mostly communication, because we have some students that are highly nonverbal. They like to just be in their own little world and don't like to talk with one another. And they might know what they're doing, but to be able to explain it to someone else and have that person understand them, that might be a challenge.
And then kind of to piggyback on both of what you said, knowing that it's randomized every time is also, they're more willing to go where you ask them to go, even if they're with someone they wouldn't want or choose to be with, because they know that that could just be a one-day thing. You know, tomorrow. And the idea is that you're using this all the time, right? Not just every once in a while, but you're using this all the time to reinforce your instruction. So if they know that today I'm with this person, and then the next day, it just reinforces that randomness, reinforces, oh, I was with somebody different today. So anytime that they're going to this group, there's that hesitation possibly, but you're going to get their buy-in because it is randomized. They can put up with somebody, and that's something that you can talk about in the beginning of the year when you're just, rolling this out, is you're saying, hey, you know what, you're gonna be working with people you wouldn't choose to be with, but it's important that you are able to communicate and collaborate with all different people. So, again, that social skills lesson.
Classroom culture definitely
Yes.
feeds into that.
Yes, culture's huge, that's right. Okay, so, all right, so here is the book. This whole process is Peter Liljehall is the one who came up with this, and he did a lot of research, and we are going to, hold on one second.
Okay, so building thinking classrooms.
And this is just the beginning of this.
I'm going to take you through a bit of a journey, tell a bit of a story of where this came from, what motivated it, what some of the results are, and what some of the implications are. So for me, this story began almost 20 years ago. I'm a former high school math teacher. I spent time as a teacher. But in 2003, I was out of the classroom. I was working on my PhD, doing a doctorate in math education, and I kind of built an opportunity for myself to visit classrooms. And I call it an opportunity because as a teacher, you're so consumed with the act of teaching that it's really hard to pay attention to students. And when we do pay attention to students, we only see the part that students want us to see. And I really wanted to understand what students' lived experience is, what the students are experiencing in a mathematics classroom. So I reached out to a network of friends and I asked them to recommend to me good teachers. Teachers that they had heard were good. And then I contacted those teachers and I introduced myself and I said, I'd like to come and spend some time in the classroom. So-and-so says you're a good teacher. And when you send an email like that, they usually say yes, and they did. And then when I was in those classrooms, I would ask them to make recommendations and so on and so forth. And because I was following this thread of good teacher, I got to see a lot of diversity. I was in kindergarten classrooms all the way up to grade 12. I was in low socioeconomic settings, high socioeconomic settings, private schools, public schools, inner city schools, urban schools, rural schools. I saw a lot of diversity. And I was able to visit 40 different classrooms in 40 different schools. And despite all this diversity, everywhere I went, I saw the same thing. Every single lesson I went into, I saw students not thinking. Now at first I didn't really notice this. I was paying attention to too many other things. And then I started to get this sense that what I'm seeing is that students are not thinking. And at first, it was just a sense. But I turned that into a research question. I spent a lot of time in classrooms trying to answer the question, are students thinking? And if they're not, what is it that they're doing? And this research produced what I come to call my baseline data. And it revealed that in a typical lesson, some students are thinking. About 20% of students are thinking. But they're only thinking for about 20% of the time. Which means that if I'm observing a 1-hour lesson, 5 or 6 students will think for 8 to 12 minutes. The rest of the students are doing no thinking.
All right. That is a huge data point there. All right, so we're going to talk about that. So here is the research baseline data that we just heard. So 15 years, 400 plus teachers, thousands of micro experiments. 20% of students are thinking 20% of the time. That means 5 to 6 kids are thinking every 8 to 12 minutes. The rest of the time, students are mimicking. Mimicking is successful in the short term. So they might do really well on the test that next day or the quiz that next Friday, but after that, it's gone. Institutional norms, I do, we do, you do, don't work anymore. It is what we're used to, it is traditional, but it is the short term. It doesn't get into the long term in their memory. The level of thinking is just not there. To get more students thinking and thinking longer, that is the goal of this practice. So thinking is a necessary precursor to learning, and if students are not thinking, they are not learning. Okay, so we're going to quickly go through this. There are 14 variables of successful teaching. So you'll have this PowerPoint to look through, but these are the things that are known to be the most successful 14 practices. These are the 3 that no matter what your personality is of the teacher, no matter what charm you have, these practices are the ones that make the most dramatic difference. So the types of tasks we use, how we form collaborative groups, and where students work. Random grouping, on the board, what kind of task are we giving them? All right, so this is kind of what this is what they were doing. You can see mimicking 53%, trying 19, slacking, stalling, faking. We can think about. We have a picture of a student in our head right now. Okay, all right, so really quick, these are the different types of presenting assignments. Vertical boards, horizontal dry erase boards, vertical paper, so butcher paper, horizontal paper where they're kind of big piece of butcher paper, but it's horizontal, and then notebook. And you can see the number of groups here, and this is the number of seconds for each of these types of things. So look how long it took. Time to task in seconds. 9 seconds, vertical paper, 10 seconds, vertical board, okay? Time to first notation, 20 seconds, and then look at all the rest. I mean, why do you think notebook was so quick in vertical board? It was, I mean, pretty, compared to these other ones, especially vertical paper and horizontal paper, okay? Would you think it's because it's public? And what you write, you might not be able to erase, right? Everything else you can erase. Here, no one else sees. It's just my own thinking. It could be doodling, who would know? How do we know? All right, so this is something that we're going to be also talking about in later PLCs, these types of practices. But this is one data point that proves that vertical whiteboards are the most efficient way to get them thinking. Okay, so the next time we meet, we'll go ahead and just kind of see this in action with students. We kind of experience it ourselves. This is just an introduction today, but the next time we meet at the next PLC in September, we're going to be diving in deeper. Okay? All right, so any questions before we close out?
Awesome.
No? So did y'all learn anything?
Yes.
All right, talk with your group mates really quick about something that you learned.
Consider engagement strategy.